Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Julie, and I'm in the first year of my PhD at the Meaning Research Late Life Lab. And besides Jessie, I'm also co-supervised by Sibrecht van Horen, who's also from the KU Leuven, and India Labek, who is from Christianstad University. So today I want to talk about the experience of deconnectedness among nursing home residents and its relationship to meaning in life on one hand and depression on the other hand. But before doing so, I first want to give a kind of warning. I think that the concept of deconnectedness is very interesting, but our research of it is also still very explorative. So the results I will presenting are still very preliminary. So why did I choose to talk about deconnectedness and to do research about it? I think we all know with the population growing older, there's also a growth seen in nursing home residents. And old age is often accompanied with personal or functional losses. And entry to a nursing home can actually cause an additional loss or feeling of disconnection. And indeed, like the concept of deconnectedness is sporadically mentioned in geriatric literature. With, for example, Register and Herman, they say that connectedness is actually a multidimensional human experience that is essential to successful aging. But besides that, connectedness is also mentioned in existential literature, with some authors describing connectedness as a component of meaning in life. I will still talk about the concept of meaning in life later on more in detail, but other authors say like, no, it's more, connectedness is more like source of meaning in life, and still others say, no, it's a kind of a combination of the two. And then few studies actually combine geriatric and existential themes. Like, for example, Sjöberg et al. It's also what we could hear already with Helena's talk this morning. They describe deconnectedness in older adults' experience of existential loneliness. And we also found Van Wijngaarden et al. They describe weariness or tiredness of life, as Judith's going to talk about, as inability or an unwillingness to actually connect to one's life. So also here, the idea of deconnectedness seems to be central. So indeed, like deconnectedness is mentioned in existential themes, in aging. However, its exact role is not clarified yet. And that's why we wanted to explore the role of deconnectedness, because we think it might be an important aspect or an important existential layer. But before jumping to that, I should also say that the conceptualization of deconnectedness is also still not clarified yet, because it's only sporadically mentioned, like throughout literature. So we focus on Van Wijngaarden et al. They describe deconnectedness towards different life role dimensions, which is actually framed in a phenomenological reflective life world approach. So it means they say deconnectedness can occur in the dimension of self, embodiment, temporality, and sociality. And when we did a broad literature search, the existence of different dimensions of deconnectedness seems to be supported. Although deconnectedness is often seen or often used as a synonym of social deconnectedness, there are also other authors with different backgrounds that describe deconnectedness towards the self, deconnectedness towards time, towards space, and towards something greater than oneself. So that's where we started for our conceptualization of deconnectedness in this study, which we see as an umbrella term for a latent feeling of disconnection, which can then be manifested in different life role dimensions. And as you can see here, so we think that you can be disconnected towards yourself, disconnected towards your body, disconnected towards time. And here we think two aspects might be important, because you can feel a sense of, you can have a disconnection towards who you were in the past and who you are now. And in literature, this is called positively worded self-continuity, so a sense of connection to one's past and oneself. But we also think there is this aspect of being disconnected to the flow of time, which is sometimes mentioned in people with depression. For example, the feeling needing to catch up with time, or the feeling that time is going too slowly. And that's what they call desynchronization. Then we also think you can feel disconnected towards others, or the social world, and the last towards space. We argue that like these different dimensions of deconnectedness might not necessarily correlate with each other, although it might be that they all contribute to like a kind of a general feeling of disconnection, which on its turn might contribute to, like in the case of connectedness, to feelings of meaning in life and well-being, or in the case of deconnectedness, to depression. So that's what we wanted to study, and we did it with an explorative quantitative cross-sectional study where we had like 210 nursing home residents of 19 Flemish nursing homes. All residents were in long-term residential care. They did not suffer from dementia or a psychiatric disorder. And as you can see, the mean age of our population was 87. We only included participants or residents that were older than 65. 77% of our participants were female. 37% had lower secondary education. It means they stopped education or school before the age of 16. And 69% were widowed. We administered the questionnaires through a face-to-face structured interview format. And here we focus on three variables. So the first is meaning in life, the second is depressive symptoms, and the third is deconnectedness. Meaning in life was measured with the three-dimensional meaning in life scale of Martella and Steger. And that is based on the tripartite view of meaning in life, which means that meaning in life actually consists of three components. The first component is significance, which refers to a sense that your life matters and is worth living. The second component is purpose, which refers to the sense that your life is directed by valued life goals. And the third component is coherence, which means that your life is logical and understandable. We also calculated the total score as like an overall sense of meaning in life. Then depressive symptoms were measured with the Center for Epidemiological Studies. It's a 20-item version, which is specifically made for older adults. Then our third variable was deconnectedness. And like I already said, we think there are different dimensions of deconnectedness. So we searched for different questionnaires. As you can see here, I just want to say something again about time, because you can see we use the self-continuity index, which we believe is only one aspect of deconnectedness to time. However, we did not find a questionnaire that measures like the desynchronization. And the last, the questionnaire, I mean, it was actually only like a single item measurement we used for place, just asked a question towards the nursing home residents: do you feel at home here? Like, as you can see, it's actually only the self-alienation subscale that really measures deconnectedness, and all the other scales, they measure connectedness. So they are positively worded, but in my results, I will just interpret everything as deconnectedness, so lower scores, so it's easier to follow. So we first did a reliability analysis of our questionnaires. We did this because it's all valid questionnaires, but they were not adapted for older adults. So that's why we wanted to check that first. And as you can see, all but 2 questionnaires had a good internal consistency. A reason of the lower internal consistency of the coherence subscale might be that the first 2 questions of this subscale are, do you think that things happening in your life do make sense? And the second question is, are you able to understand the world around you? And our participants answered like, no, I can't understand the world around me because there is a war going on in Ukraine. So we feel like maybe it's contextual factors that made them answer differently on that first 2 questions than normally. So that might be a reason for the lower internal consistency.
Can I just ask how many items are included? Can I just ask how many items are included?
Of today, I think so. It's 11 items of the meaning in life. It's 20 items of the depression, and then the deconnectedness. I think it's around 40 items. So it was quite a lot for the participants as well. Yeah. Lower internal consistency of the self-continuity index are less clear for us at this moment. So we did correlational analysis and a linear regression analysis to then get like an idea of the role of deconnectedness towards like meaning in life on one hand and depression on the other hand. But we first did like check the correlation between the different components of deconnectedness. And as you can see, we generally got low to moderate correlations, which might confirm our hypothesis that the different dimensions of deconnectedness do not necessarily correlate with each other. However, I mean, it's still very preliminary, so we should investigate the structure of deconnectedness better. And I feel we are I don't feel we are planning to do that with factor analysis. So that might give us more insight than just the correlation. Then the correlations between the components of deconnectedness and depression, between the components of disconnection towards the self and disconnection towards time and depression were generally moderate. Low to moderate, let's say, but we got high correlation between the components of body, others, and place. Then the last one is the correlations between the components of deconnectedness and the overall score of meaning in life. The arrow is pointing to that. They are also moderate. And then the correlation between the subscales of meaning in life and depression and deconnectedness are low to moderate. And actually, there was only one correlation, as you can see here, between coherence and deconnectedness towards other that was not statistically significant. So then a multiple linear regression was calculated to actually predict depression based on these different components of deconnectedness. And we found a statistically significant regression equation with all the components of deconnectedness, explaining 57% of the variance in depression. But that's when we control for like civic state, age, gender, and education. However, it's actually, as you can see here, it's only civic state, deconnectedness towards body, deconnectedness towards others, and deconnectedness towards place that had a statistically significant effect on depression. Just to give a more idea, a little bit more in detail, it was deconnectedness towards the body that explained 6% of the variance in depression on top of all the other predictors. Deconnectedness towards others explained the most, 15%, what's maybe expected. And deconnectedness towards place explained 8% of the variance in depression on top of all the other predictors. And then we did exactly the same, calculated a linear regression to predict meaning in life based on the different components of deconnectedness. And again, when we control for civic state, gender, education, and age, all the components together explain 32% of the variance in meaning in life. So it's a little bit lower than the variance they explained in depression. However, there are more components that actually have independently a significant effect on meaning in life, which you can see: civic state, self, body, time, and place. However, at a lower statistically significance level than the others did. So that's a bit like the first ideas. It's still very explorative. However, it gives maybe like a first idea of the experience of deconnectedness among nursing home residents, which, like, if residents feel they're disconnected towards their body, towards others, or towards their nursing home itself, it might help us explain or even predict depression. And again, if they feel disconnected towards their self, their body, towards time, and their nursing home, it might explain fewer meaning in life. Just to conclude, I just want to say something about what we are still planning to do, but also some questions we can still ask ourselves. First of all, like I said in the beginning, it was only the self-alienation subscale that actually measured deconnectedness, and all the others measured connectedness. And we can ask ourselves the questions if indeed, like, connectedness and deconnectedness, are they two sides of a continuum? Because it might, for example, be that the absence of connectedness does not imply experiencing deconnectedness. So that's something we still need to ask ourselves, like, how do we think about that? Secondly, but I also already mentioned, like, the structure of deconnectedness, can we see one general component and different dimensions? Should be further explored with factor analysis. And the third is what we're planning to do. We still have a second and a third wave of data collection. So we're going back to the same nursing home residents to ask the same questions. And then we can actually do longitudinal analysis. So we can integrate depression, meaning in life, deconnectedness in one model doing mediation analysis, which gives us hopefully a better understanding of the role of deconnectedness. So that was it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for the presentation. Back to hand. Are there any questions at this moment?
Okay. Thank you for your very nice presentation.
Thank you.
I found it very interesting to hear and see all the data. It's not based all on interviews.
Yes.
So it's another box of another part. I have a question about the relationship between depression and deconnectedness. I was intrigued by the fact that you found such high relationships. And I was wondering, how do you see this connection? Because you seem to in your presentation, you seem to say that deconnectedness might cause depression, but you have a correlation in design. So I was wondering, why do you think it should be that way? Why not the other way around? Depression causing deconnectedness, or maybe the same thing. When you feel depressed, part of being depressed is also that you don't really relate to people around you. So are you really talking about different things, or are these actually the same things?
Yes. Yeah. It's a perfect question, because I think we're also still busy with that. Like, how do we entangle everything? I mean, for the question, like, hopefully our longitudinal analysis will give us more insight about indeed, like, is it something different and can it indeed predict depression, or is it the other way around? So we hope that will be clarified. But I think, like, it's a good question. Like, is depression not already, like, is it not included to feel deconnectedness at that time. But yes, I'm waiting, like we will collect the data, and hopefully then it gives a little bit more insight, and then at least we can already see if it's indeed something that can predict or not, and then it might give a clue that it's maybe something different or not totally.
Do you have a hypothesis based on the literature or on your own reading?
Yeah, I think our hypothesis is that deconnectedness might predict depression, so that it's coming first. And I think it's based on just the idea of indeed like old age entry in a nursing home. There are reasons to feel disconnected at that point. So that goes first and depression goes after. Yeah, that's our hypothesis, but still like it's not based on much literature because there is not a lot of literature about the topic.
Could you see something maybe about maybe you know something about the history of depression?
Yes.
Depression is often very so maybe that gives some indication.
Yes, exactly. But we also have the information about previous depressive episodes, but it's not included now because we're still busy with the data collection, so we did not include everything. But so that will also maybe help to have an idea. And yeah, then it's maybe again something else, but it's a good question. Yeah, thank you.